Hi, welcome to my channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to be participating in a Sew Your Stash collaboration hosted by Mom Does Life Homemade. And I'm going to link her channel as well as the playlist down below in the description box. So make sure you check her out along with everybody else who's going to be participating and see the awesome things that everybody creates. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a MacKenzie child inspired valance for my kitchen window. Now I love MacKenzie childs, and if you've watched any of my videos, you've seen several MacKenzie child things lately, and they have great valances. They're close to $100 a piece for their valances, and I thought I could make one for a little bit less. Actually, a lot less. So I have this material, and at first I thought I was going to put some pleats in it, and then I decided it was a little too busy of material in my opinion for pleats. So I ended up cutting it down, and I ended up cutting it to 38.5 inches wide and 14.5 inches long. And that's going to be the size of our valance. Now, I'm not going to do a whole lot of measuring for this. I'm going to let the material kind of do it for me because I'm going to be measuring a lot of it by the width and the lengths of the checks. So like here, where I'm going to put my seam in, I'm going to do my bottom seam and my top seam 3 check widths. So you can see here how I just ironed 3 check widths down. And you always want to iron whenever you're doing anything with lines or a very definite pattern like this. It's always best to use the iron and get your lines nice and straight so it looks very clean and sharp looking. And that way when you're looking at the front of it like what we just did here, you're not seeing your pattern looking all cattywampus or askewed, but it looks very nice and very sharp and clean and professionally done. Now here you can see I flipped it over on the side, and I'm just kind of pressing it with my hand first, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to press it with the iron. And I just have a couple old towels sitting up here, and so I can iron right here on top of this countertop. And we're giving it a good press because we want everything to look nice and clean and sharp looking. And that's looking good right there. Now when we flip it over, look how nice and sharp, and you see complete check pattern all the way from the top to the bottom. Now we've taken it over here to our sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew. And what I'm doing here is I'm back stitching just to set those stitches in so it doesn't come undone. And now if you can stitch a straight line, you can make this valance. This is a very beginner friendly type of sewing project. Like I said, if you can sew a straight line, you can do this. Now, generally when we sew with our seam facing up, but I knew exactly where the seam was going to be on the underside because of the fact that I knew that I went exactly 3 check widths down for our seam. So I knew that if I made my stitch line 2.5 checks down, that I would be able to be in the perfect spot for doing the bottom of my seam. Now one thing I'm doing here is I'm using clear thread for the top, and I have black thread in my bobbin. Now the reason I did the clear stitching is because since it's going white and black on the front of our material here, the clear stitching won't be really noticeable on either one. And that's kind of the look that I wanted, a nice clean look. But I will show you on the shorter ends of this what it looks like if I had the black stitching on top. Now, once I have that part done, I'm going to set that aside a minute, and I'm going to take this other material and I'm going to go 4 check widths over, and I'm going to cut some strips. And these are going to be for our tabs at the top of our valance. Now, like I said, I'm going 4 check widths, and then I'm going to count down 6 check length down. And that width is going to be 2 3/4 inches wide, and the length of each of our tabs is actually going to be 4 1/8 inches long. Now, you may want longer tabs or shorter tabs. That's completely up to you. For what I needed it for, those were the measurements that I needed. Now, what I'm doing here is, because this is 4 check widths wide, I'm going to take the 2 outer checks and I'm going to fold those in half. And that is going to be our seam allowance on our tabs. So you can see how I'm just pressing it nice and straight. And the more you press on your sewing projects, the less pins that you're going to need to hold it. And I'm not a huge fan of using a ton of pins on things. I prefer to have some nice clean lines so that I don't have to have a ton of pins. And this is just like what you would do for if you're quilting, how you press your pieces down first. It's the same type of thing. And that will be our tab right there. And you can see it's all perfect. It's all nice. There's nothing that looks askew about it. And we're going to do this with each of our tabs. And once we have those done, we're going to come back to our valance. And now we have our hem at the top and bottom done. Now we're going to do our side seams. And for the side seams, all I'm going to do is fold that over 1 check width. And then we're just going to press that down and make it a nice, sharp, straight line, just like what we've done with the other sides of our valance. Just like what we did with the top and the bottom of our valance. We're going to give it a nice sharp seam there. And that's looking good. And now we're just going to turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. And you can see how nice that's looking. And now we're ready to sew this. And like I mentioned to you before, I'll show you what it's like if we would have put the black on top. Now this is how you normally sew, is with your seam facing up. And so now my bobbin thread is going to be the thread that is going to be on the front side of our valance here, but this is just going to be on the short ends of our valance. So I don't mind showing you what it's going to look like if we end up doing this part in the black and not the clear. And now we can just cut these threads off here. And we'll do the other side as well real quick. And again, this is just straight lines. This is the easiest project. It's just a few straight lines and you are done. It's quick, it looks great, and it will save you a ton of money. Now right here, you can see with the black thread, how you can see it on all the white squares. And that is why I did the clear thread for the long length parts. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain stitch our tabs together. We're going to back stitch at the beginning and then just our straight line down. And with chain stitching, it's just where you go all the way to the end of your little piece of material, do a couple empty stitches before adding your next piece in. And it's something that you generally do when you have a lot of small pieces that need stitched together or that need stitched, and you don't want to start and stop for each one individually. So just do a couple empty stitches in between and then add your next piece of material in. In there you can see it. It almost makes a banner type effect when you get them all stitched together on one side. Now we're just going to flip that over, and now we're going to chain stitch the other side. And we're going to back stitch to set those stitches in there so they won't come undone. And you can see right there, we're just doing the same thing to this side as what we did to the last side. Now I am certainly not a fast sewer. And here we have it. They're all done. Now all we have to do is cut these apart. And now we have our valance that is all set to go, and our tabs are all set to be added to our valance. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our valance and we want to find the exact center. So we're going to take and match those corners up nice and straight, and we're going to hold our thumb right where the center is, where those two have been folded, and we know right there between that white and black check, that is our exact center. So we're going to take our tab and we are going to line up the two center squares on our tab right with the squares on our valance, matching them up exactly, and then pinning our tab to our valance. And we are pinning our tab one set of squares down. And that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and add in this very end tab, and you can see on this one all we're doing is matching it up to the very edge of our valance, going one square down with our tab and pinning it in. Good. Now we're going to go and do the other far end the exact same way. Now we have that done, and now we're going to find out where we need our tabs for the center here, for the rest of it. So we're going to bring this half of our material over, and we're going to only go halfway into that center tab. So we're going to go right to one check in the center tab. Then we're going to count our checks going both directions from the edge until we find the exact center there. And we're going to take a pin and we're just going to pin that line right there between our white and black squares. And we know that is the center of that portion. We're going to hold our finger to the underside so we know where that center is. We're going to line up the two squares on our tab, fold our tab over, and now we just need to pin it. And it's really just that easy, adding our tabs on. Now all we have to do is where we pin this first pin here, we're going to grab another one of our tabs, line it up, one square down, fold it in half, Make sure all of our squares are lined up with the squares on our valance. Take our pin and pin our tab to our valance. And that is looking great. We have all the tabs done on that side of our valance. Now, all you need to do is do the exact same thing to this other side of the valance. And again, we're just pinning our tabs on, making sure they're all one square down and that the squares on our tabs are exactly set up even with the squares on our valance. And now that all of our tabs are pinned to our valance, we're going to take it over and we are just going to sew those tabs on. One more straight line and our valance is finished. Again, we're going to back stitch here at the beginning to set our stitches in good. And now it's just a straight line. Now don't forget that we do have those pins in there, so you need to take those pins out. Don't sew over the top of them. And just continue all the way down. And here we are at our last tab coming up. Again, just sewing a nice straight line. We're just continuing that. And back stitching once you get all the way to the end. And we can just cut our threads off. And that's what it looks like up close, having our tab all sewn on. Now, I did not want to use the hardware that was already on the window frame. So I just went and picked up this very, very inexpensive tension rod from Walmart. It cost me $2.47. I thread that right through the tabs on our valance and just laid it up on top of the shelf portion of my cabinets. And you can see our valance is all done. It looks great. I'm very happy with it. I'm pleased that I decided not to go with pleats in it because I was just feeling that the pattern itself looked plenty busy enough that I just didn't need pleats on top of all the checks. Now, when I was out and about, I stopped at the Dollar Tree and they had these really cute flowers. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just kind of lean them up against the edge of the shelves so that they kind of are right next to the curtain. What do you think? Do you like them next to that valance or do you think it's too busy? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Thanks so much for watching.